Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Maria Elisa Christie. I'm Director of Women and Gender in International Development at the Center for International Research, Education, and Development at Virginia Tech. And Pratirakshya Kwarala is my graduate assistant supporting the discussion series. She's a graduate student in the Geography Department at the College of Natural Resources and the Environment here at Virginia Tech. Welcome to the virtual Women and Gender in International Development discussion series at Virginia Tech. This is our second event this fall, and we're happy that you could all join us virtually for today's discussion, featuring Dr. Brenda Bunabana as the guest speaker. Thank you, Brenda, for joining us, especially, or we wouldn't all be here. As of this morning, we had 63 people registered for today's event. So besides lots of students, faculty, and staff from Virginia Tech, we have folks who registered from other U.S. universities, UT Austin, of course, Texas A&M, University of Florida, and UC Davis. And we have several organizations in the U.S. registered, including Catholic Relief Services, the Borlaug Institute for International Agriculture, which is at Texas A&M, Cultural Practice, and USAID, as well as folks from Pakistan, France, Norway, Kenya, Uganda, and Senegal. So welcome. I hope that many people got the time right and time zone right and are actually here. So please note that our event will be recorded. So if you, and that way it will be available on our website later and through our library. So for all the participants here, by staying on, you're consenting to be recorded. You can turn off your camera if you don't want your image recorded. So before introducing the speaker, I invite you to reflect on Virginia Tech's land and labor recognition. And this is a shortened version, and Pratirakshya is going to put it in the chat, the link to the page that has the full one. So Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tutelo-Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that the Morrill Land-Grant College Act in 1862 enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands in California and other areas in the West. We also recognize that enslaved Black people generated revenue and resources used to establish Virginia Tech and were prohibited from attending until 1953. Through inclusive VT, the institutional and individual commitment to ut prosum that I may serve in the spirit of community, diversity, and excellence, we commit to advancing a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. So now some brief housekeeping notes. So this event will last approximately 45 minutes. Our speaker's presentation will be about 25 minutes, and then we'll have about 20 minutes of discussions and Q&A with the audience. All of the participants will be muted to enable the speaker to present without interruption. So as always, in order for our discussion to be as rich as it can be, we need everyone to be respectful and treat all participants with kindness and consideration and without discriminatory behavior. So if anyone is disrespectful, such as interrupting the speaker or bringing in off-topic issues, we will have to remove them from the Zoom meeting. So you can post your questions at any time during Brenda's talk in the chat box, because we'll be saving them in a Google Doc, and then at the end of the presentation, you can either have, I will chat you and I will either read them, or you can unmute yourself and ask them yourself, orally yourself. But please wait for your turn to speak so that we can avoid interruptions and maintain etiquette. So again, the webinar is being recorded and you will have access to it later via our website. So if you would like to enable captions, let's see, Pratirakshya, I think, is going to put the instructions in there. So if you would like to enable captions so that you can see the words printed out, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you can find option, more, select, and then select show captions and select English. I don't know if there's another option, but so in advance, I'd like to ask you to please answer the survey at the end that we'll share in the chat at the end, and it'll also be emailed to you. It's very important for us to get feedback to help us with our programming and funding. So now, finally, to introduce our speaker. So Brenda Bunabana is an assistant professor in the Department of Geography and the Environment at the University of Texas at Austin. Yay, UT Austin Geography. That is my alma mater and department also. Bunabana holds a PhD from the University of Otago in New Zealand Her research focuses on sustainable development and gender, specifically in the areas of agriculture, tourism, and women empowerment in Africa. She's a feminist geography scholar who pays attention to the importance of intersectionality, participatory qualitative methods, and gender justice. Sustainable food systems and environmental justice are core to Brenda's work. She has published widely on gender, women empowerment, and development in Africa, as well as providing expertise to national organizations in Uganda and international agencies such as the United Nations World Tourism Organization and IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute, as well as Cornell University in the US. Today, she will present findings from a study that focuses on the meanings of empowerment for rural women and men farmers in Uganda, key areas of rural women's disempowerment and implications for their meaningful participation in and benefits from agricultural opportunities. So the title of her talk is The Local Meanings of Empowerment and Lessons for Gender-Inclusive Agri-Food Systems Programming in Uganda. So please welcome Dr. Brenda Bunabana. And Brenda, please, oops, let me admit, Deborah Rubin. Please share your screen and I will mute myself. Ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria, and happy to be here, happy to join this meeting. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're seated or watching from. All participants, protocol observed. Thank you for the kind welcome to the meeting. I appreciate it so much and the invitation. And today, I'm going to talk about the local meanings of empowerment and lessons for gender-inclusive agri-food systems programming in Uganda, as Maria has already indicated. This is work that I'm doing with a team of great researchers based at both Makerere University, University of Florida, and Villanova University. So this is the team that I'm working with on this project. And Professor Florence Chohirwe Muhanguzi is in the house. I hope other members are also in the house. So we are a team of really 7 women running the program in Uganda, which is ending this year, actually. We are funded by USAID through the University of California, Davis, and through the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Markets, Risk, and Resilience, for which generous funding we do appreciate. As part of the introduction, I would like to take you to Africa, just a snapshot that agriculture is a major source of rural employment, but also livelihoods for most sub-Saharan African, women and men, but also youth are engaged in agriculture. These days, they're actually getting more active than even before. And we see that 66% of rural women are employed in the agri-food systems compared to 60% of the men. Over 80% of the Ugandan women derive their livelihoods from agriculture for the Uganda perspective. It's mainly smallholder farming in terms of food, food crops and also livestock farming, which people mainly call small animals, the goats, the sheep, the birds, and all that, which women really are tied to, and also mainly food and nutrition for their families. And they contribute significantly in terms of labor, but also in terms of producing most of the food basket really for the country in Uganda. But we see persistent gender inequalities in the agri-food systems across the region, but also this is amidst other multiple shocks like climate change shocks, like civil conflicts, but also price fluctuations. Amidst this as well, we see huge investments, from state and non-state actors different governments, different institutions, the civil society organization working together as stakeholders to enable gender equality and women empowerment and promote particular interventions in the agri-food systems in the global south. But also we see slow progress. So there's that kind of contradiction in terms of investments, address some of the problems, but also the outcomes. For instance, we see gender-based violence rising, we see poverty rising, we see women disempowerment in particular areas also either stagnating or even rising, and this calls for attention to tackle all those despite some of the progress in financial and human capacity investments. And we've seen that actually often there's top-down intervention design of some of the programs, including the agri-food system programs, which are less grounded in the local, contexts in terms of contributions from those who are affected, those who are supposed to be the beneficiaries, especially the women and the youth, for instance, in particular for those social groups. And this presentation ties to those narratives around disproportionate representation in terms of intervention design, in terms of implementation, but also in terms of outcomes being either stagnating or slowing down, but also weakening even more. And our work is part of this. This presentation is part of the broader project I've talked about, strengthening the resilience and empowerment of women, smallholder farmers in Uganda. We started in 2021 and we are concluding the project, and we are now conducting an impact evaluation or an end line. This month, the team is in the field actually. So in terms of our area of study, we are in 2 districts, Aleptong in the north and Isingiro in the southwestern parts of Uganda. And these are districts, we call them administratively, we call them districts, in terms of language, and they are located in the Kato Corridor, a region most vulnerable to climate change shocks in the country, the most vulnerable, characterized by semi-arid conditions, low and reliable rainfall, prolonged drought, but also dominated by agro-pastoral rangelands. So there's a mix of crop farming, but also pastoralism, sometimes also in some parts which is nomadic, like especially like in Karamoja region. So the blue color is more of the corridor, the Kato corridor that I'm talking about. And the pink is where our project is based in the 2 districts. And how did we approach and measure women empowerment? We are using the project level Women Empowerment in Agriculture Index, which is a tool developed by IFPRI, the IFPRI GAP2 team, and definitely anchored in the understanding that is provided by Naila Kabea about empowerment in terms of choices, ability of one to drive their goals and see those goals come to fruition and enable outcomes, looking at agency, looking at, resources and achievements. And for this particular tool, it is focused on agency, women's agency in particular, and measures empowerment in terms of 3 domains, which is intrinsic agency, collective agency, and instrumental agency, and comprised of 12 indicators across those types of, domains. And as you can see, the wheel, we have, if you can observe, take a second to observe, we have different indicators like 4 indicators for intrinsic agency around self-efficacy, autonomy of income, and others, but also about 2 for collective agency, and a number of them for instrumental agency, which is also includes work-life balance. So for a woman to be considered empowered, we took the threshold of 75% as recommended by the tool. That is, if 9 out of 12 indicators someone is adequate, then they're empowered. They're regarded as empowered. If they are, if they are below that, like they're considered inadequate and disempowered, and if in 4 or more indicators, then they are regarded as empowered. So this is the tool that we used, and the anchoring, the conceptual anchoring of the entire project is has a gender lens, has a women empowerment lens, but also an intersectionality lens, partly. And in terms of sampling, we reached out to 1,280 women and men in terms of couples, women and their spouses, and we sampled those who were already in groups, so functioning groups in the communities, and to reach out to particular numbers, we followed a systematic random sampling, which was a scientific process that we did, and qualitative, the protocol really uses mixed methods, qualitative, quantitative, but also we use the randomized control trial as part of the experimental design that we are following up. So what did we find in our baseline? In our baseline, we found negative local sentiments about empowerment in general and an empowered woman in particular. And these negative sentiments were actually more, this is from the qualitative now, drawn from the men's experiences and perceptions and ideas around empowerment and an empowered woman. And compared to the women, I think it was a more positive outlook, actually, which is understandable because of the patriarchal nature of most of the societies, most of the cultures that we were working with. So they were considered as witches, they were considered as proud, incapable of managing and sustaining a good marriage. And some of them said, okay, they are not marriage material, they are dangerous to marriage stability and peace for the households and for the community. They are prostitutes, disrespectful and uncultured, less submissive, and some of them said they are competitors with their husbands, with men. And that ties to the importance of loyalty to marriage that people were attaching to empowerment and an empowered woman, gender systems, really shaping the empowerment narratives, but also looking at increased women's economic independence as, a weak point for men's authority to continue. So these continuities of men's authority, patriarchal, systems were tied to the understanding that people really generally gave, especially the men that we talked to, but also some women. Other than the negative sentiments about an empowered woman and the whole idea about empowerment, we found positive but contradictory sentiments as well, where they said, yeah, actually, women also, empowered women, we know that they're hardworking, they have the ability to earn an income, to meet essential household needs, to pay, school fees for their children, provide food and security, benefits for the households, and also leadership capabilities, especially for the women groups. They in particular, identified that being a women group leader was a very good indicator for women, especially tied to an empowered woman who was able to lead a group, decision-making power around economic resources, food production, but the joint decision-making was really spotlighted as very important, but that that it's good if they work together with their spouses, and then having a decent house and living environment, but also interestingly, disciplined and decent children who are not like taking drugs or taking a lot of alcohol, are in schools, good schools, and can study up to the university. So this kind of picture of this empowered woman that they were portraying kind of contradicts to what the negatives that we talked about of the same woman and the same concept of empowerment. And simultaneously, these women, importantly, what we picked, are expected to respect their gender expectation, to be ideal women who actually shield the existing patriarchal norms. So they're supposed to go out, work, bring the money, but also be able to do all like the gender roles and all that. So we found that really interesting and contradictory. And that was a good entry point for us to understand people's mindsets, people's views for us before we intervened. So having had that, the negative sentiments, the positive, and contradictory narratives around empowerment, what do our quantitative findings say? Actually, they tie to this. They show how, people, the women are not empowered. 42% of them were found to be, only empowered. And then, so that's less than 50%. And these are women in groups. So if we went to women who were not in groups, I'm sure the number would have been like half. And these women who are in groups, social groups, women's groups, are those who are relatively better economically in the community, who can afford membership or can afford some mobility. So it should give you a picture of that context. And for the men, it's the same. 48%, less than 50% are empowered. And that gives us a picture of what is happening and how this is tied to the narratives, the qualitative narratives that we've seen, which are really negative and contradictory. And yeah, again, this takes us to the areas of disempowerment. We found that women were more disempowered around work-life balance, attitudes about domestic violence, control over use of income, self-efficacy, respect among household members, and autonomy in income. These big boxes, the bigger the box, the more disempowerment. So this to me was very interesting because it helped us to know, where the core problem was. And it should not surprise you because, like we saw, men themselves are not empowered. Like 42 to 48 is not a big difference, although they are relatively higher a bit. You see their levels also not far from the women's, although women's boxes are really more significant and more outstanding, and also the detailed quantitative levels of significance show really that women are not doing better than men, but men are themselves not doing better. And this shows that actually disempowering women and putting them in a position where they can advance, in terms of their potential and opportunities and goals and choices is not good for everyone. The men themselves are not doing well. It means the community is actually not doing well. And so this is the picture. These are the results, and you can see where the major issues are, and relatively closer in terms of gender, differences. What did we do after this? We had to rearrange, we had to reorganize. We were able to, I think we working with a very flexible funder, UC Davis and also USAID. They gave us the mandate to actually and we rearranged things, we redefined the proposal design and implementation, and they supported us. They said, use the baseline to really redefine your agenda, redefine your process. And we were able to now target the areas of disempowerment, which we identified around instrumental and intrinsic agency, but also, the things I read about work balance, attitudes about domestic violence, control over use of income, self-efficacy, respect, and autonomy in income. And remember, we are looking at issues empowerment and issues resilience. So we had to co-design and co-create with the intervention packages with the women to address these areas of disempowerment. And we took a gender transformative approach. And there is, an IFAD report that has the toolkit, the compendium of good practices that we drew on, and we really developed the interventions with the women on ground, engaging men, women, and community leaders, training. We had these packages, training in climate smart technologies, practices, business skills, and then we had a revolving fund. At first, we also had the insurance, weather index insurance, which we dropped because after consulting the stakeholders and the women, they said that will not work because these premiums are really kind of abstract. They bring this when we've already, it doesn't work for us. And after consultation with the experts, we dropped it and focused on more of those interventions that were deemed useful by the women at this point, although we don't say that weather index is not important. It's important, but it's now business for the future after trying these that we agreed to. The revolving fund was about $40 per woman. We didn't give all the 1,200, because 1,280 was men and women, so half were the women. Meaning that we had about 600 plus. So it's not that we gave all, we selected 10 women per group who first used the money, and then the money rotates around. They return it after a few months after using the money, 9 months, 6 months, and then other women borrow it, and then it revolves. Then peer learning sessions were ongoing. We worked with existing local structures like train of trainers, gender officers, agriculture officers, environmental officers. And this was, we were looking at the more long-term opportunities in terms of sustainability of the best practices that might come out of this program, but also localization of the monitoring and evaluation process. I think this is very important and exciting for us. We put women at the center of the monitoring and evaluation ongoing, and they were able to, in their local language, understand the guidelines, and we trained them, we gave them paperwork, and they kept on giving us information, and we tracked progress, and they were very excited to be part of the monitoring and evaluation process. So we have all the documentation, we've documented the process with the women, and this is really itself, it's been transformative for them. So the early lessons we've learned from qualitative midline and M&E data that we've gathered from, from our team and the women themselves, the flexibility with women's investment choices has been amazing. We allowed women, for instance, we allowed women to be flexible in terms of the investment choices, to be creative, innovative, considering those realities that they were in. For instance, some invested the $40, they invested in livestock, which was deemed less risky compared to crop investments that that demanded a lot of, checking and was definitely more liable to climate risks. So some went into livestock, especially the goats and the pigs. Those were lucrative for them. And they invested in areas where they felt they had control over income, benefits, resource support systems, where they had prior experience, including the market knowledge of the commodities, the related commodities, and targeted income and food security. So this was very strategic for them. There was also high interest. We learned that there is high interest and willingness to adopt low-cost, climate-smart agronomic technologies and practices, in particular organic manure, and other organic-related fertilizers, zay pits, mulching, and improved seed varieties, as long as they are low-cost, accessible, and and helpful for their preferred investments. The revolving fund, we are very excited because we've had almost 100% recovery of the revolving fund in the 2 districts. Women bring the money without even being looked out for, because they're working in their groups, and they bring it to fellow women. They bring and give another 10 women who use and bring another 10 women following the guidelines we've given, and the innovations. Some of them have come up with innovations like charging small interest and expanded the fund, and we are not charging interest, but some have put an interest and they have expanded the grant. Improved gender relations, we've noted that there is sharing of domestic roles, for instance, at the household level, reduced levels of domestic violence. We have records from security agencies saying areas where you intervened, the treatment areas where you are, we are not seeing people anymore fighting. We are not seeing spouses coming to report violence, and there seem to be good relations in terms of sharing roles, which everyone is talking about. And I've been there, we've been in the field most of the time, and it's been a story. High demand for scaling, technical people, policy people, community members. There's consensus that the model is working for them and should be scaled to other communities, but also to other districts of Uganda. And they're comparing with government programs. They're saying, why is it that yours is working and the government programs are not working, where there is even more money? And that is now another conversation. Training of spouses together, a man and a woman, is a key contributor to the positive emerging story. It has been amazing. People coming together, they are 70 years old, and they're saying, where have we been? I've not hugged my wife over the last 50 years, and now here we are happy and, taking part in this, and it also made them really excited, but also maintaining this flexibility with women's investment choices has really worked well, where they have invested where they felt comfortable. These are some of the examples, the pictures. You can see where they invested their incomes. Rice, they're already selling and eating the food, the rice, the chicken. I haven't put all the pictures, the goats. This lady, number 6, invested in her banana plantation. The one, number 4, bought a machine, a processing machine. You can compare number 1 to number 4. Number 1 is from Malebtong. You see the technology she's using. The one, number 4, is using a better technology, but it shows you where our women are positioned at the moment in this era of technology, the processing that they have to go through. Number 3 and number 1 are from the north, from Malebtong, and these are the old ancient things that they are still using. And these are the empowered women we are talking about. The number 2 is selling second-hand clothes, the bras, and she's paying school fees at university for her children. I visited all these women. Number 5 is selling, invested in livestock, goats produced, and all that is, there's a lot more to talk about. Here we see a man who we randomly went for monitoring and checking, and randomly visited their household. The wife had gone for a meeting, and we went with her back home, and we found the man cooking, peeling cassava, and as he waited for his. This is a couple that was trained, and this is amazing. The man was keeping the baby. The wife found when they were both cooking and doing child care. On the left is a manual that we've published, Gender Transformative Agriculture Practices. I think it is available for sharing, and it packages all that we did in terms of capacity building that I talked about, climate smart agronomic practices and technologies, business skills, gender relations, and how we went through the entire process to train the trainers of trainers. In terms of lessons, as I conclude, lessons for gender inclusive agri-food systems, I think we're already picking these, co-designing and co-creating interventions with the intended beneficiaries, especially women from the gender perspective, and global South is very important. Understanding the context, power dynamics, helps us to have the acceptability, but also entry points for our interventions, but also processes of change. Engaging spouses rather than individuals, it is very good. It protects women to drive the agenda and addresses inequalities in a more meaningful way, and everyone being on board, because like the men signed for women to take the $40, the man signed and the wife also signed to guarantee that the woman would bring it back. Locally grounded partnerships are very important to build trust and sustainability. Resource demanding, we need to invest in time, human capacity, and the kind of teams that we are working with who can deliver on the intended outcomes. Financial capacity worth investing in, and to increase opportunity for success. Capacity, train. We've trained and been there in the field, be there on ground, and target the deep-rooted gender barriers through local partnerships and collective community engagements. Thank you so much. I acknowledge USAID, Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Markets, Risk and Resilience at the University of California, Davis, in partnership with the International Center for Evaluation Development under the Advanced Local Leadership and Innovation Network in Kenya. I acknowledge women and men participants and all stakeholders that participated. Thank you so much. Over to you, Maria.
Okay, let's see. We have one question. Now, let's see. Sheikh, have you responded? So, yeah, let's see. Maybe I have a new message, should I? Oh, yeah. So, but it's actually sharing some of the publications. But okay, so Sheikh, if you don't unmute yourself and ask, I'm going to go ahead and read your question.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation, and we really appreciate this study that has very good outcomes. And I have a question on means that because you talk about food security and nutrition, about investment that the women were doing when they make their choices. And I'd like to know, how this investment especially on the security and nutrition has been dealt, by the woman. So thank you very much.
Sheikh, can you come again? You'd like to know what has been dealt by the woman?
Yeah, about the investment choices that they made, dealing with food security and maybe nutrition. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Should I take that first or this? Okay. Thank you, Maria. Yeah. Thank you, Sheikh. Women were very strategic, and they made choices. We left them flexible to make choices and to invest. But then when we went back to ask in the midline, qualitative midline, and now I've said that the end line is ongoing for both quantitative and qualitative. And during the qualitative midline, we asked why they had chosen those particular enterprises. And the answer was we had to choose where we had more authority. We could exercise more authority around our investment and income. So those who had like gardens, land, access to land, some of them could not invest in the land when they thought that the money wouldn't be controlled by themselves or the investment. So they went for instance, secondhand clothes shop. And we allowed them, and others went for a goat. They bought like a goat and it has produced like 3 kids. Others went for like a pig, and you hear it has produced 8 piglets, and then they have sold 2. when you hear the stories, you're like, is this happening? And they tell you, I have built this house, and the house is there. They are struggling to you know, and you're like, is this $40 that we've given? And by the way, this is from the American people, so we acknowledge the contribution through USAID. So this is amazing. So yeah, and then they target to get income from all these investments to be able to feed their children, feed their families from all these enterprises, but also importantly, the education of their children. But also the crops, to get food for the family, and those who have the shops, they are able to support like buying milk for the children and education. One of them actually told us the truth and said, when I got the money, I had issues. I paid school fees for my daughter because she had been chased away from school. But immediately I had to get the money back. And this is what I have invested in. So their immediate needs are there. And women ensure that they get back the money and pay in the groups. So Sheikh, I don't know whether I've answered you, but it was strategic, where they had control, where they felt they needed to be in charge of those investments, and where they knew the market, for instance, was conducive for those particular enterprises. So we could not prescribe for them, kind of. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I think makes sense very well. Thank you very much.
So Larry Vaughn, would you please go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you, Brenda. It's been very interesting. With the similar levels of disempowerment between the men and the women, I was wondering if there was any correlation between disempowered households and empowered households. So did you have disempowered women more likely to be found in households where the men also felt disempowered, or was there some kind of opposite relationship or no correlation whatsoever? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. I think that relationship, I need to check in with the quantitative data to see the correlation. That is a very interesting question. I don't know, Florence, what you think, but most likely, I should say yes. Yeah. But I need to get the data very, very clear. Florence is here. I don't know. She has been checking in more details with the data. I don't know whether you'd like to add that, our PI.
Well, Brenda, you can also respond to me later if you have a follow-up. Larry works right here in our office at CIRED, so
okay,
I'll
good.
be happy to share. I do think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, okay, sure. Florence, would you like to add? Maybe Florence has dropped off. Sorry.
Okay, so if we have another question or comments also, this is a discussion series. This is why we have this as a Zoom meeting and not as a webinar, so we can have discussion. So please raise your hand, and so we don't have everyone talking at once. Let me choose from the many hands, but I don't see any right now. And I really enjoyed the presentation. I've worked in a lot of different regions in Uganda, and it was very exciting to hear your research and see the pictures, and also the comparison. And food preparation is one of my areas, so I really like the technology. And I actually I'm going to ask a question because nobody has their hand up. So I'm always interested in, technology often reduces women's time and labor, but it often makes them dependent on men for something that was previously in their area, and sometimes it affects the income that they make from it. Have they had that the mills or whatever it is that they're using long enough? Have you seen anything like that, or do you have any ideas on that?
In terms of better technology for the men?
No, so if women used to grind things by hand, and now there's a machine, do they have the training, and do they have the money to maintain the machine, to use the machine, or does it become something that is now in men's control?
Excellent question. I think we found that women in Sinjiro, in particular in southwestern Uganda, which is more position in terms of political alignments and developments compared to the North. Their political issues and backgrounds in terms of, even civil conflicts. So the women in southwestern Uganda, in Isingiro, were relatively better in terms of even the technologies they were accessing, like in processing, and really they were kind of in charge when they chose those technologies, like processing of the food products, like grinding kind of cereal, and storage, water storage technologies. So they were in charge and they were able to really manage them. But in the North, it's different. It's very difficult. The women are under more precarious conditions, and it's really a big difference. And that's why you can see more of more ancient, laborious technologies in the North compared to the Southwest, control might be more difficult in the North, especially among the households where we've not intervened. But households where we've trained the couples, it's been smooth. That's where we even saw the man peeling cassava as he took care of the child. And this was random. Florence and I were there. Thank you.
Kayla, I just wrote you. Do you want to ask your question or shall I read it? And then we have one from Sienna. And Larry, I don't know if you've raised your hand again or if it's still raised. And by the way, Florence just joined again, so she might have dropped out at some point. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and read Kayla. So did you ask questions to the women about their opinions relating to men's empowerment as you did ask to the men about women's empowerment?
Yes, we asked the same question. And there's a whole protocol on IFPRI website, GAP2, which really both qualitative and of course you contextualized qualitative questions, but then the quantitative tool, the ProWay index is not changeable. So they were able to answer the same questions. Yeah.
Okay. Sienna, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question? Otherwise, I will. I'm going to read Sienna's. When you started to conduct this research in Uganda, were the women, men, families, and groups welcoming to your help, or was it a challenge to build trust with your participants?
Great question. First of all, maybe I forgot to say that I'm a Ugandan. Most of our team members are Ugandans, and Laura, Dr. Laura Mazendik and Dr. Nagiza are mentors. So for them, they were based in the US. We were on the ground, and most, we understood the language. For us who knew the Western Uganda language, we went to the Western Uganda. Those team members who understood the Northern language went to Northern Uganda. So we really planned very well the entry points, and we knew the challenges. We were so welcoming that some of those goats are called Makerere University. They are called USAID. They have named them after the project. They are called, in particular, USAID and Makerere University. I think not much about UC Davis so far. I haven't found a goat called UC Davis so far, but they were so welcoming, such that they respect us so much in terms of the approach that we used of involving them, working from the bottom up rather than top down. I think that was very helpful to ask them, even choosing the intervention areas. We did it with the local authorities at the district level. We came and said, we found this from the baseline. So how do we select even the sub-counties where to put these interventions, the treatments? And then we did the exercises with them, sampling and say, we had reasons, the criteria, let's go to this, not this, because of these reasons. And that's where we respected their voices. That's where we went. And those are the same people we trained as trainers, because as professors, still there's some power dynamics that is there. So we wanted them, the local people, the local leaders, the local technocrats, to be in charge of the process, so that women are not seeing these Makerere University professors or University of Texas professors coming in with big language and all that. So they were already using extension workers. So we felt comfortable to give the skills to these extension workers very intensively, practical. And then they went in locally to be able to deliver these trainings. So it was like a stepwise cascading process, but which was really locally grounded. Yeah, which was appreciated. Thank you so much for that question. And that makes why the program has been, I could say so far with confidence, very successful. We are yet to see the results. They're coming up the end line, but all the midline M&E work shows great success. And we are putting together a documentary, and at one point, I hope we'll be sharing all these, maybe with even the USAID, to show the actual voices of these people speak and showing what they have been able to do within these 3 years. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. The next question by Elizabeth Smith is actually, you've addressed some of it, but she asks, can you speak more about the training process? So I'm not sure which training process, but maybe you will know.
Okay, the training process, we developed a manual after as we were doing the contextual analysis and understanding and knowing the challenges. Then as part of the intervention design and rollout, we developed a trainer manual, which I showed in the slides, and it's available for sharing. It's open resource, funded resource, so we can share it for you to use. So we developed this manual to guide us. And like I mentioned, the trainers on ground did that, but also as we built their capacity, they were able to pick up skills which continue, even because as local government workers, and we were very selective also for who we were working with and within which position. They trained in the local languages that women understood. Women came with their spouses for the trainings, for the gender trainings, for the climate smart agriculture training, business skills. They were able to give us business plans before they go to the $40. Just everyone wrote what they wanted to invest in, what is their proposal. And eventually we trained them to do all this, and they felt really, really connected to the project. So when we are there and we invite, they really come with their spouses, even up to now, and they're asking, is this continuing? Is this going to be scaled? Is this going to other communities? Because we see these communities where you're working different from the other ones where you didn't go. So is there a chance for others? So the training were very, very significant, as I mentioned, as one of the key pillars for gender inclusive programming, future programming. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So Kayla, I see your hand is up. I assume that this is a separate question, right? Please unmute yourself and go ahead. And then after that, I'm going to ask Florence, but yeah, Kayla, go ahead and unmute yourself.
It is a double question. I was just going to ask, what's the reason for choosing the 2 different districts as far as the North versus like Southwest Uganda, and choosing those different districts?
I didn't hear Kayla well. The selection, did you ask about the selection?
Yes, of the 2 different districts related to different parts of the country.
Yeah, we selected them because, first of all, focusing, and this was also more of a scientific sampling of the district, because we followed a certain criteria, being located in an area more prone to climate change shocks, in the Cattle Corridor, but also the districts that had more problems with gender inequalities in Uganda. I think Florence will speak to the data that we used for that, select the worst performing districts in terms of gender equality from the records. So these became part of those, and then they are the ones we picked up, because to make an impact, we had to know all this kind of baseline that was happening. Yeah.
So Florence has her hand up, please. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us listen to Dr. Wanawana and, for Virginia Tech, allowing Dr. Wanawana to share some of our works. I just wanted to add a little more about the trainings, the process. The previous colleague asked about. Our trainings were three. Of course, they started with the TOT, the training of trainers, of local government staff, the community development officers, and agricultural officers. And then when we went to the communities, we trained couples for a 3 cool days training. And on the first day, of course, we dealt with understanding gender, taking the couples through a reflection process of understanding how gender relations, the gender dynamics within, their families, in their homes, looking at issues of power, the different forms of power, and reflecting on learning and unlearning those negative social norms that often create tensions within the home. And then on the second day, we went into more technical issues relating to gender responsive, climate smart agriculture technologies. And then on the third day, we went into discussing business skills, entrepreneurship, savings, and economic decision making within the homes. During the trainings, we of course, as Brenda has said, we used the local staff using the local languages. We ensured that we designed training materials that were locally grounded, that depicted the local context, the photographs, the visuals. We use the visuals more than the words, for people to relate with what was happening in their communities, and that we found very, very helpful. So we at first thought that these women and men would not go on for 3 days, but it was interesting to see that they were interested all through, to be in the trainings. So that was about the training. Then the selection. I think, Brenda, you've explained it well, but maybe to just say that we considered exposure to climate shocks and agriculture shocks, but also we considered the levels of discrimination based on the social institutions index, where we were looking at sites that had high levels of discrimination against women. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, the CG, that is the abbreviation that I want. The CG is, social, Thank you, Florence. Maria, over to you. Anything else?
This is a very exciting and wonderful presentation, great discussion. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Brenda. Some people joined late, and I'm not sure if they, because we're like across time zones, sometimes people have the time zones confused. So I'm sorry if you thought that we have another hour in front of us, but we don't. So I appreciate everybody who joined to learn and also shared their thoughts and questions. So we are sharing a short survey, but the actually already has it in the chat there. So please fill it out. It is very helpful to us, and it helps us bring speakers even by Zoom from outside. Our next event is November 14th. It's Dr. Kalpana Giri, who's a senior manager in the World Resources Institute. Her presentation is titled Beyond the Critiques and Ambitions of Equity, Mainstreaming and Restoration Practice, Lessons from the Global Restoration Initiative. Don't miss that one. It will be hybrid, so it'll be in person in the library here and also on Zoom. And you can check our website for more information. And you can let us know in the survey if you'd like to be added to our listserv, where you will receive updates of future events. So have a wonderful day and hope to see you on November 14th. And thank you again, Brenda.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.